Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stephanie and today we are back with another mukbang. Woo! So today I'm excited because we have in front of us these crispy rice, spicy tuna burgers, but they're salmon instead of tuna, and they look insane. They look absolutely gnarly and out of this world. I don't even know how much rice is in each burger patty. I imagine it to be like 2 servings, so I'm excited. We also have these. I have no idea what's in here. It's gonna be like a mystery bite. I'm gonna bite into it and let you guys know, so stay tuned for that. This is a nice pork tonkatsu ramen, but I think the broth is chicken, but on top we've got the pork, we've got the jammy eggs, the runny eggs.
Didn't you say it's a famous spot?
Yeah, so apparently this place is a chain from LA, and the LA location was once referred to as potentially, not really, but recommended by people who like Michelin star restaurants. It's a really weird way. Okay, the ratings are amazing. Let's just try it out. We also have these like little buns in the back, the bowls in the back, but I just want to say, I've been doing this new thing recently, and I feel like everybody has been on this kick right now. It's called Yoga Nidra. It's essentially sleep yoga, a state of consciousness between waking and sleeping, and the best way to get into that point is with guided meditation. But you would be surprised at how loud this house is, even when I'm not talking. We always have people in and out. The dogs are always barking and alert, and that's why I like to lay on the couch for 20 minutes a day with my Raycon earbuds in. And it could be peak hours of the house. The house could be jam-packed. Sophie could be running around, but I can still put myself in a really good yoga nidra state thanks to my Raycon earbuds. Did you know that the customized gel tips of the Raycon everyday earbuds fit perfectly in your ear? But even the earbud itself is specifically modified through countless design iterations to seamlessly fit into the curvature of the human ear, big or small. I mean, it's so snug, it's so comfortable, it does not budge, and it just creates for this amazing noise isolating experience. Like, these earbuds do it all for me. Like, they're comfortable. The noise quality is amazing. I can meditate with these babies in. But they're also durable, and they seamlessly fit into my ear so well that I can go jogging and do Pilates with them on. And the noise isolating is amazing. And the earbuds offer 8 hours of playtime and a 32-hour battery life, so it's perfect for watching movies, listening to your favorite podcast, Rotten Mango, taking to travel with you, which, by the way, they're so durable. Like, I'm a really clumsy traveler and I destroy everything and anything in my possession anytime I travel, but my Raycons, chef's kisses. And I honestly love the price. You get quality audio at half the price of other premium audio brands. So it's no wonder that Raycon Everyday Earbuds have over 49,000 5-star reviews. So make sure to go to buyraycon.com/biz for 15% off your order. It's amazing. Like, you're gonna want a pair and a spare. So that's buyraycon.com/biz, BISS, for 15% off your order. And thank you, Raycon, for sponsoring today's video. And let's get into it. I'm so excited for this. I think I gotta start with the burger. Oh no, do I start with the ramen? I'm gonna start with the ramen.
Yeah,
I'm gonna start with the broth. Cause
so this is the famous ramen.
Oh yeah. It's gonna put me to sleep, but it's so good.
What?
Like, something about it, in Japanese ramen specifically, it's the best with a nap right after. Like, that's the best way to consume it. Let me try.
Oh. Oh, I like it.
Oh.
I like this.
Oh, it's good. Wow! It's spicy. It's so creamy.
Oh my gosh.
This egg is so jammy.
The spice is so good.
It's not an overpowering spice. It's almost like a delicate tickle in the back of your throat.
That's a way to describe this. A tickle in the back of your throat.
I felt that one before.
This egg is amazing. That's how you know the spice is good.
It's tickling my my throat.
Okay, let me try the piece of chicken. I can't try the pork, but...
Oh my god.
Okay, that's confusing.
That is good.
Wow. It's almost like a chicken nugget. Can I say that? Okay.
Yeah. It's like they yeah, I don't even know how this is prepped. Now this burger, on the other hand.
Wait, do we try the mystery meat?
Oh yeah.
Here you go, sir. A little dipping action.
We're taking guesses. Anybody want to guess what's in here?
So I feel like maybe a shrimp.
This is definitely not a shrimp.
It's shrimp!
Oh.
It's shrimp!
Damn.
Mmm. The batter is seasoned really well. You almost don't need a sauce. That's very confusing.
Bouncy. What is this?
So they don't grind the shrimp down. I guess they boil it and then they fry it. It's confusing.
Wow.
Listen, you know what's about to be even more confusing? This burger. I don't even know how to
Now
tackle
this burger is handmade by yours, Stephanie Sue. So for those reasons, I'm out.
For those reasons, I'm not getting involved. I'm not eating one. I don't even know how to...
Wait, tell them what's on here.
Oh, okay. So you got the avocado. You got the green onions. There's wasabi, soy sauce, ponzu sauce mixture. You got the salmon all minced up. And then these patties, these burger things on top and bottom, they're just crispy rice. Like, you know how you make the crispy rice for the tuna bites? Same thing, but just ginormous.
Sushi rice.
Sushi rice. So,
But crispy.
like fried, like deep fried practically.
Jeez, that crunch. What? Is it good? Are you sure? All right.
Wow. Mmm. Mmm. I think I could have used a little more sauce, but wow. What do you think? Okay, that sounds good.
I think.
Are your teeth okay?
Is my front tooth still there?
Why is yours sound so crunchy? Okay, take off the... So I guess this is what it would look like without a burger size bite.
If you guys are interested in some shattered glasses. I'm kidding, it's pretty good. I like super crunchy stuff. You guys eat it like the bottom of the rice? Like crispy rice?
We call it durangji.
Yeah, they're good.
Let me try it by taking off one of the patties. Because you guys know I'm not really a rice girl. I try every day to be a rice girl. I try to be one of those girls that can eat the brown rice, that can eat the white rice, that can eat the freaking legumes.
Pretty good, pretty good. Not bad.
Okay, last bite before I get into it here. Because today we're talking about a really peculiar part of history. Like, I didn't even know this happened. Am I the only dumb one? Because sometimes I'd be like, I never knew this happened. And all the comments are like,
Did you not go to school?
how did you not know? So maybe I'm dumb.
I didn't know, the other day I was talking to Stephanie about,
Are you talking about the canines?
no, I'm talking about the Eiffel Tower.
Guys, the Eiffel Tower was stolen like twice. And he didn't
But
know.
everybody knew this?
Everybody knew this. It's like a very generic fun fact about the Eiffel Tower. Now, imagine I sit you down and I say, you have 6 months and I'm gonna stick you in a prison cell if you don't come up with a masterpiece that even experts would consider, might even trick an expert into believing it's, let's say, a Picasso. If you can't do that within 6 months, you will be executed by the state. There's gonna be a prison guard to watch you to make sure that you, yourself, are the one painting it. We don't want any funny business. I mean, what? You're like, who does that? That seems like cruel and unusual punishment. How is that even allowed, right?
But if you do it, what happens then?
See, that's it. The stakes are weird on this one, right? You do it, you get released out of prison.
Okay.
How would you feel?
Then I'm gonna do it.
You think you can create a Picasso in prison? But also, don't you think it's weird that the government is trying you like that? The government is straight up telling you, if you can paint like a Picasso, we're gonna let you out of prison and not execute you.
Yeah.
It's weird, no?
A little bit, yeah. I don't think it's too good to be true.
Let's talk about this bizarre story. There was a man that was put on trial for selling a Vermeer. You know who Vermeer is? Yeah, show them, babes. Well, you can't really show them. Can you show them?
You wanna know?
The girl with the pearl earring. The most famous Vermeer. The most famous of them all, okay?
It's on my wrist.
It's on there. Well, he was known to sell a Vermeer to a Nazi. Yeah, I know. What the fork? Here's what's going on, okay? Welcome to Art Fart class. Today we're talking about Han van Meegeren. I don't think that I'm saying that right. His full name is Henricus Antonius Han van Meegeren. Imagine giving that to your barista. They would hate you. Back of the line, you don't get coffee. Henricus was born to his dad, Hendrikus. And I wish I was making this up, but Henricus' dad was Hendrikus, okay? So Henricus just went by Han. And I know I have to be pronouncing something wrong here, but anyway, I apologize. Han's dad, Hendrikus, was a history teacher. And just to put things into perspective, do you know when the last time a teacher's salary alone could feed his wife and his 5 kids? Because you can't do that in 2022.
No.
You think you can have a stay-at-home wife and 5 kids and just be a teacher? No, 1889 to be exact. So that's when Han was born. And Han's mom was a stay-at-home mom. He had a ton of siblings. He was just pretty miserable though. He hated his life. He hated his dad. He despised his dad, really. His dad would come home from teaching history. He would sit his son Hans down and he would say, I need you to write on this piece of paper 100 times. And if you don't do this, you can't eat, you can't do anything. I need you to write down on a piece of paper, I know nothing, I am nothing, and I am capable of nothing. So like daily affirmations, but make it childhood trauma edition. Okay, that's what was happening. I mean, I get it. It's 1889. You're probably into a bucket. Your cough syrup probably comes with a dash of cocaine and heroin. You just wait in line at the pharmacy for morphine these days. Did you know the first ever movies were actually filmed in like the late 1800s? And it was fully silent. So maybe you did need some heroin to have fun, okay? I'm just kidding, don't do drugs, okay? But anyways, this is the life that you were living. If you had an infection, your doctor would prescribe you with leeches. It's called bloodletting. So it's like the idea that you're getting rid of bad blood. So you just sit in a tub of leeches, essentially. Yeah, so it wasn't a great time, and I'm sure it was really hard for Hendrikus to get his hands on some sort of gentle parenting book, some gentle parenting woke guide. But there's just no way in any century that a parent could think that writing this 100 times a day could be good for a child's mental development.
In America, you guys make kids write something like over and over?
Yeah, like the alphabet.
No, like as punishment.
No.
Write something like 10 times.
No, I don't think so.
Let's say you misspell the word apple.
So what
how
do you
would they
write?
make you learn how to spell apple? They don't make you write apple like 10 times?
It's confusing because I still don't know how to spell apple. I know Koreans do it, so I don't know if I'm mixing up my Korean side with my American side. Because I remember writing stuff like that a lot. Especially in like Korean class. I'd have to write the same fucking Korean sentence 100 million times. It was miserable. But you know what? No, I still don't know how to. It didn't work. It's like that hypnosis thing.
What is that?
This girl on Reddit said in her hypnotherapy class where she was learning how to hypnotize people. No, not in the clinical sense, like in the stage presence sense. And the stage hypnotist went on the stage and wrote 502 and was like, by the end of the day, you're gonna forget this number. You will never remember this number. And she said for years, the only thing she remembered, she didn't remember anyone's phone number, she didn't remember her fucking birthday, but she fucking remembered 502 for the rest of her fucking life.
Did she get hypnotized?
Yes.
Like, so the goal of the experiment is to make her remember?
No, make her forget.
Are you sure?
Yeah. And she said it was ironic.
Huh.
And this is that because I don't even remember what the sentence I was writing in Korean was. But I just remember sitting there writing these sentences. So Han's dad hated him, okay? And Han had a dream. You could say he kind of had daddy issues, you know? A big dream and a very evil dad makes for a lot of different personalities. Han just really wanted to get into art. And his idol was Vermeer. Yeah, girl with the pearl earring, not to be confused with girl with the dragon tattoo. I'm just saying. Like, there's just gonna be that one young kid that's like too young to be watching this video going like, oh my god, I love that movie. I didn't know that was Vermeer. Okay, so anyways, let me backtrack a little if you don't know who Vermeer is, because I'm not really familiar with art. I just find it so fascinating. So this is not me being like, oh my god, I'm so artsy. I actually think like random art facts and like these random histories of some of the artists, because imagine you're like this. I just like the idea of a tortured artist, if I'm being honest with you. So let me backtrack a little bit to the Baroque period. Not the Baroque period, but the Baroque period in Europe. It was like the it time during the 18th and early 19th century. This is an art phase. It came right after the Renaissance, which is considered the rebirth of art and everything. Renaissance literally means rebirth, so Baroque came right after. Everyone is like, yeah, we're fucking born again. Thanks for the rebirth. Let's get wild now. Like, let's get drunk. Let's just be crazy. So the Baroque period was all about art that was just overcrowded, grandiose, overwhelming, shocking. Anything Baroque, typically there's a ton of people in there, almost to the point where you're like, are they meeting some sort of character count? Why are there that many people in this one scene, in this one frame? Like, this just feels so freaking hectic. Like, that's the type of art that you're dealing with. And it's beautiful. I could never achieve something like this, but that's just kind of how you describe it. Like super extra, loud artwork. It's really unclear where the term Baroque even originated. One theory is that it came from the Latin word barocco, which means anything complex. But the French often referred Baroque to jewelry. So I don't know if it has anything to do with jewelry. Anyway, Vermeer. I don't know how he fits into this shit. I do, but not really. So Vermeer is from the 17th century, and he really specialized in painting normal, everyday life. Yeah, he was relatable. He would just paint people reading, sitting, like middle-class people setting tables for their house. Like, he wasn't painting all these royals and these upper-class people just having these opulent parties. He would just put normal people cooking. Like, he just seemed to love the same few people too, so all of his work seemed to be all of the same women just throughout his work, or like different slight variations of the same woman. And as far as Baroque goes, Vermeer's stuff is really scaled back. So it definitely wasn't grandiose, and I don't even know why it's considered Baroque art. So please let me know in the comments, because like I said, I literally know nothing about art, and I am sure that I am hurting art people's ears right now and your souls, but I'm just genuinely so fascinated by it. It's so bizarre. Hans is idolizing Vermeer. Not that they can ever meet, because Vermeer died like 200 years ago, before Hans is born.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so like,
okay.
Yeah. But that inspiration, that love, that respect, that admiration, it was all there. And maybe when Han looked at Vermeer's paintings, he saw this middle-class family, and he wished that he had a normal family, where his dad didn't beat him down and discourage him every chance that he got. I mean, this is heavy speculation, but it's not impossible. Or maybe Han was just inspired by his high school art teacher, whose idol was Vermeer. Regardless, Han just wanted to know everything about Vermeer. Not just about his famous pieces, not just about how he mixed his colors, but what he used to paint on and how he created this paint. I mean, which is part of why Vermeer was so famous later on, because he had these beautiful colors that almost jump out of the canvas. And it's so easy to do now. I mean, the ability to just create a trillion different variations of colors with the click of your little iPad pencil. Freaking gnarly, okay? But back then it was difficult. Like, you had to get raw materials and mix them into paint. And to get a very specific color was incredibly difficult. It's just hard. And to get a color that would even wear well for years and wouldn't just look dull after maybe like a year of sitting on a canvas, it was hard. So Han would literally learn all of Vermeer's techniques, and he had just had this dream. I want to be a painter one day. And his dad scoffed at him and said, "You'll never make it." Do you know how many hardships painters go through? Most of them are broke while they're alive. Your lack of ambition, your lack of talent, what makes you think that you are capable of being an artist, let alone a successful artist? Go study architecture instead.
You goofy little boy.
So Han listened to his parents. Coincidentally, though, he ends up in the same city that Vermeer had lived in and painted most of his works for college. So Han, he was content for the beginning. He wasn't happy, but he wasn't miserable, okay? Architecture at least was somewhat like painting. Like, you could be artsy, you could take little drawing classes, but he never even attempted to graduate. He was super skilled. He designed the clubhouse for the rowing club at his college, and the design was so good, the clubhouse was built using his design, and it still exists to this day. So the guy has the skill. He just has no desire to be a freaking architect. So he leaves everything his last year of college and goes to study art at the Royal Academy of Art, which, by the way, is just as prestigious as it sounds. It's one of the oldest art academies in the entire freaking world.
Wow.
It's fancy. In the Netherlands. So he meets a woman, a college girl named Anna. He's in college, so it's not predatory or anything. Okay. So like he meets Anna and gets her pregnant, and he's thinking, okay, let me be a little gentleman, let me put a ring on it, and he marries her. And they actually have a son together named Jacques van Meegeren. Jacques. He also becomes a relatively well-known painter later, so it kind of runs in the family. Anyway, Han, with all of this going on, a new baby in the house, he starts teaching art history, which does not pay well. He was making like $1,200 a month in today's money. You're not gonna, like, how are you gonna survive? So every month, he's just bringing this home, and then Anna's like, well, Han, I don't know what to tell you because I'm pregnant again. And he's like, I gotta start making new art. I gotta get a second job. So in his free time, he starts painting these little drawings here and there. And you're like, oh my God, it's gonna be a breakthrough. He's gonna become like a genius. No, he was doing like mainly Christmas cards. Like it wasn't great. He would sell them to practically anyone who wanted it. And now that he's dead, they're worth a really pretty penny. Which, like, you ever think about it? Do artists ever just want to fake their deaths? Because it seems like your stuff is better when you're dead. So, do you just, like, make a bunch of art, fake your death, and then go take all your money?
Right.
Because now it's limited.
Is that what it is?
I think so, because art is all about limited. Art is all about how many people can get it, how many editions are there, how many pieces did this artist make.
I thought it was about the story.
Oh, that's true, too.
Yeah. Maybe some art major can tell us.
Yeah, or also with maybe today's day and age, it's like, what happens if they're canceled, you know? What if
Artists canceled?
Yeah, what if you buy this amazing piece of art and then they get canceled and nobody wants to rebuy it? And you just have like, I don't know how much art is.
But isn't art all about like the story, like the Mona Lisa and stuff? It's about how famous a piece is, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just still about how many people who want a piece.
But don't you like the idea of artists faking their own death? That's a good movie.
So what happened? Someone fake a tragic death. Mm-hmm. And then this was the last painting that he was working on. Yeah. Goes of herself. Mm-hmm. And then it was sold for $100 million.
Wow.
Is that a lot? That's a lot, huh?
I'm sorry. Is that not a lot to you?
That's a lot, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how much these artists sell for. Grandpa sells it for $30, you know.
At grandpamangostudio.com.
But let's say $100 million.
Exactly.
And what happens then? He comes back alive? Oh, he was the person who's bidding on it. He bid up the price.
Yes.
And then
it sold for $100 million.
And then who gets the money? The wife.
Yes. But she ends up.
Why are we still here?
She ends up actually killing him. She's like, you actually need to be dead now. Because if people find out you're alive, the painting is gonna be worthless.
Or
They want a refund.
Or what if she promises that they're gonna take the money and be together forever? But turns out the wife is cheating on him.
So she goes away with the other dude, but he can't say nothing about it because he's dead.
Yes.
He's dead.
So he's gotta come back. He's gonna come back as a new painter that outshines his old legacy.
Yes, because artists, nobody knows what artist looks like. He just came back as a new person.
That outshines the old dude's legacy.
Oh.
And he makes a new name for himself.
Dang, that's good.
Is it though?
Thriller book.
Thriller book, he said. So anyways, so why is it that after they die, I mean, just tell me, like, is it because you have to struggle in order to be an artist? Is there no art without the struggle? I'm just saying, okay, I'm just fighting with myself right now. So Han breaks through when he starts drawing deer. Like, people went feral for this shit. They really liked his deers. This is how he kickstarts his whole career, with deers. One of his most famous paintings is called The Deer. It's really good. It's of a deer. Anyway, he starts traveling through Europe with his money in hopes of making an even bigger name for himself. So he ends up in Belgium, France, Italy, England, you know, all the famous places. And a bunch of rich people, they start hiring him to do their portraits. And they were just so impressed. They would say things like, wow, Han, you're really amazing. You've got such extensive knowledge of the Dutch masters. Like I don't even know what to say. It's just beautiful. Like, wow. And with all this praise, Han starts feeling himself and he cheats on his wife. And his wife leaves and she's over him and he's like, no, honey, I'm just a tortured artist. And she takes the kids and moves to Paris. And Han eventually gets married to a new woman named Johanna, who wasn't the woman that he cheated on his wife with, but she was this beautiful actress that he had fallen head over heels for. So back to this guy's art. A lot of rich people, specifically in the south of France, really loved his shit. So he's getting the attention that he wanted and needed for so many years. And it's not that simple. With love comes hate. With love comes criticism. People would say things like, Han is great, but he has no originality. He's inspired by the old masters, but all he does is recreate variations of their works. His work is so tired, it's overdone, it's bored, it's boring, it's giving us nothing. Sure, Han has the technique, he has the knowledge, he has the skill, he has every single virtue that's needed in an artist, except originality.
Art people are so scary.
Bro,
oh
people like
it's like I don't even know what you're saying, but damn.
Yeah.
You be spitting.
Yeah, and like, do you ever think that these critics, like, you ever think they think about, can I critique your critique? Because you're kind of a bitch. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, you're really bitchy. So to say Han was a bit butthurt was an understatement. He did not take well to any of this criticism. It just lit this fire underneath his ass. And it's not like he could just go on Twitter and let it out. He had to instead write in his monthly magazine for a newspaper to hit back at the haters with a newspaper. He wrote about how the criticism that he did all of this was just from a bunch of slimy woman haters and insert racial slur lovers, and somehow he also managed to insert the very passionate article about how he allegedly also hated Jewish people. So it was just an article. I don't even know how to describe it. It was a shit show of an article. So that's freaking great, Han. He was really pressed. He felt misunderstood, underappreciated, and it felt like he was talking to his dad all over again. So he feels like this need to prove himself to all these people that he's not some sort of copycat. He can make a name for himself. He can't just copy the Dutch masters. In fact, he could freaking outdo them. So he permanently moves to the south of France and he starts preparations for the ultimate forgery, which sounds like one of those movies, right? Like he goes to buy the supplies. He's in this scenic, isolated house in France with no contact with anyone else. He's locked himself in the garden room to paint and paint and paint and splattering everywhere, and he's trembling like a madman. And while he's painting, you don't even get to see the final product until the very last brush stroke. But it wasn't like that at all. These preparations took 5 years.
Jeez.
He had to study the lives of the old masters, and he would have to practice each of their skills and their notable brush strokes to the point where it was perfect. Of course, he settled on copying Vermeer since that was his idol. I mean, that was a big reason. Another reason was that Vermeer was a super obscure painter till the 20th century. This meant that a lot of his work didn't even survive the previous 2 centuries.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't have a lot of artwork, right?
In fact, only about 35 of Vermeer's works were saved. This meant that every single Vermeer was incredibly scarce and incredibly valuable. So after 5 to 6 years of prepping for his entire life's moment, he produced his first big forgery, Man and a Woman at a Spinet. I mean, it was a classic Vermeer. It had a man and a wife in their middle-class home just chatting next to their little wheel spinner. The way that he painted them, the colors, the vibe, everything was Vermeer. And instantly, when it was brought to an art authenticator, they took one look at it and said, by golly, it's an authentic Vermeer. One of the leading experts in the field said, it's beautiful. Beautiful, just like all of Vermeer's other works. So this forgery was a success. It was sold to a rich Amsterdam banker, and Han received a pretty sum for it. So yeah, he goes on to forge another one, okay? This was considered one of his finest forgeries. Christ and the Disciples at, I don't know how to pronounce this word, Emmaus? Moss? Is it just fucking mass? I don't know. So the same expert on Vermeer said, this painting was Vermeer's greatest piece ever. He looked at it and said, this is Vermeer's greatest piece.
You talked about someone who did that?
Yeah.
What was it? And where was that? Is it New York or something?
Yeah.
A lady, right?
Yeah.
Who's doing the same thing. The examiner just like, oh wow, this is real.
Beautiful. Fantastic.
That's crazy.
See, art really is tax evasion. I don't know what else to say. It's beautiful, it's great, but it's also tax evasion. There's actually a really fascinating book that I recommend you read. It's called Chasing Aphrodite. It's about how the world's biggest museums are just smuggling stolen historic artifacts, essentially. Like, you think you walk into a museum and you're like, wow, it's because humans are really good at preserving a piece of history, when in fact it was probably looted, stolen, and even in current time, got like, shadiness going on.
Grave digging. And
yeah, like, it's not as clean and simple as you think just because it's behind that red rope and a little glass wall. It's actually really nasty. Like, that book is going to get you hooked. If you want, I can give you like a brief little what goes on, but it's freaking wild.
We should talk about something. Like, I used to be so obsessed with them. Oh my god.
He was telling me the other day.
There's so many good ones that's going around in China. So basically in Yuanmingyuan, which is one of the garden of one of the most empress or whatever, she had this huge garden and she was known to collect the treasure of the world. Her collection is probably one of the most insane collection in the history of mankind. She has this whole garden for it. And then there's some historical event happened. There's some people who stole everything, lit the whole thing on fire. One of the most famous thing are these 12 copper animals.
The zodiac.
Zodiac animals. They're the fountain heads. So there's this 12 animals fountain head in front of the garden. And they were all stolen. And those heads, the head of the fountain, were on sale in international auctions even recently. Like 20 years ago, 10, 20 years ago. And then this just became a huge thing because these are representation of Chinese history, right? So China's like, that's ours, we need it back. That's part of our history. Yeah. But they're like, well, we just been offered this for sale, so we have to sell it. So it became this whole thing. Now it's like China's on the chase of hunting down where all the pieces are at. We only had like 6 of them back, I think. So we're still 12? Searching for the rest of them. And the price are insane for any single piece of them. So if any of you guys just pay attention, if you see a copper in like an antique store or something, just look at it.
You might be looking at a $100 million piece of copper.
Holy shit.
So much more to the story.
But it's also so devastating. Like, when you think about it, like, I know this is a huge thing too. Like, all the African art that's stolen and pillaged. Like, really? Come on. Are you serious? Another topic for another day, because that's getting deep and we're getting heated. Anyway, this painting, the freaking Christ and his, what was it? His buddies, his disciples?
His buddies.
Christ and his buds, guys. Okay. His homies.
His bros.
So now Han has gotten the validation that he needs. His ego has been stroked, and now he can write all about it in his monthly newspaper. His haters can see how it's really done. His haters can shove it up their butt. He could scream at them, see? You say I have no originality, but I made a painting so good that you yourself thought it was the work of an old master, you freaking idiot. I fooled you all. I have the talent. I have this. How much did you say the painting is selling for? Millions of dollars? And Han's thinking, well, shit, the haters can wait. Maybe I can do a few more, really prove my point. It's not about the money. It's not about the money. Not about the money. It's about proving my point, right? I mean, sure, I'm gonna get a couple $1 million per painting, but it's about proving my point. So he tasted this wealth, and he wasn't gonna go back. He bought a furnished mansion named the Primavera. I say this every time, but if your house has a name, you're like super rich. It was tastefully decorated. Han set out to truly define forgery as a business model, of course. He started creating more and more. He went out, he bought authentic 17th century canvases. He mixed his own paints with raw materials that they would have used back in the day. Things like white lead, indigo, cinnabar,
Not to be confused with Cinnabon.
trust me, that one confused me. He even made his own paintbrush, identical to the badger hair paintbrush that Vermeer was known to have have used, like he put in every little bristle. He even came up with a scheme of using formaldehyde. Okay, so he was gonna force the paint to harden faster. Essentially, he would bake it with formaldehyde, and then it would crack all over like old paint. Then he would roll a cylinder over it that would make more of these tiny little cracks that you would want, which really gave it the appearance that it was like 300 years old. Because if you genuinely saw a painting that was over 300 years old, it'd be full of cracks, right? He was also trying to replicate the look because in under those cracks, you would see little glimpses of like black, because it's the dirt and the dust that have gathered for 300 years. So he would go in and he would use black India ink to fill in the cracks of the painting, because that's what it would look like would have naturally happened. Now, the biggest problem was that Han would have to be super secretive about what he's doing. He wasn't even allowed to use models. I mean, he couldn't, because then there would be witnesses to his forgery. So he couldn't use models while he's painting, and it's not like he could Google images of people at the time. Like, he had to use no reference at all, really. No reference for facial expressions, anatomy references. Honestly, Han had insane talent. Like, he had insane skill that was unmatched by a lot of different artists at the time. He was able to use his own imagination and knowledge of the human anatomy to create his works.
So the question is, if Vermeer did this art, right?
Yeah.
And he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
And here comes this person who does the exact same art. Mm-hmm. To everybody else, the quality of the art is the same. Mm-hmm. So is he also a GOAT then? Is he also great at what he does, which is drawing art that's absolutely Vermeer level that you can, you know, it's like, I mean, I guess the first one has its originality, but the second one, he's not copying it, right? He's just applying the same techniques.
Copying his style.
Copying the style, exactly.
But I think, you know, maybe it was more important back then, but here, isn't it hard to not copy a style? Because, I mean, like, you could say something's unique, but how unique is it really? Because if I were to scour the internet as much as I could, I'm sure eventually everyone's style kind of merges together now.
Yeah.
Is that like that with art? It's confusing.
Yeah, it's confusing.
Yeah, and do you guys value style better or originality? Like, do you just value a piece of art that you're like, oh, I feel something when I see this? Or do you value, like, this is such an original piece?
I think people will always value originality.
Yeah.
Like, this is the original piece.
The OG.
The OG, yeah.
The OG. So anyways, for example, Han actually painted The Last Supper. This painting has 13 different figures in a variety of poses, and he used no reference models. So with that, he forges The Awakening of Lazarus, another Vermeer forgery. And get this, Han was really doing the most. Like, he surrounded himself and the painting with a bunch of violets, because the aroma of violet oil was typically found on Vermeer's works. So he wanted to impregnate his own painting with the smell of violets. So The Awakening of Lazarus was later referred to as the capital, or as the masterpiece of Vermeer. It was bought for like 4.6 million euros in today's money by the Rembrandt Society, and now that Han has Vermeer money, he bought himself another mansion, a 12-bedroom estate, to paint more forgeries, including The Last Supper 1 and The Last Supper 2. There's 2 editions. And guess what else has 2 parts? Not just The Last Supper, but the freaking World Wars. World War II starts raging, and Han's getting a little nervous. What if someone finds out about my forgeries? What if just the war in itself gets rid of all my money somehow? You know, like, I'm a man, I could be drafted, I'm a little bit nervous. So Han formally divorces his wife. Remember the actress, but they're still together. He moves all of his assets and money to her name, so he's technically broke, but he's living with her with all her money, but it's his money. Are you seeing where I'm going with this, okay?
It's like our little thriller story.
Exactly. So he transferred about $25 to $30 million in today's money to his now ex-wife that he's still sleeping with. And the 2 of them would go off and buy more houses, real estate, jewelry, luxurious art to decorate their lavish home. In an interview, Han bragged about how he had 52 houses and 15 country homes around Europe. The housing market was a lot less competitive back then, but that's still an ungodly amount of houses. And he had all the money in the world, but he still couldn't buy one thing: health. You were gonna say originality. I was gonna say health. He chain smoked, he drank heavily, he became addicted to morphine, sleeping pills, everything. I'm sure the heroin-laced cough syrup back in the day didn't help anyone, but like, Did you know you could just buy radiation back then? I talked about this in a pod. Like, it was their version of energy drinks back then. Radiation in a bottle. So he starts creating more forgeries in this drugged up, sleep-deprived, chain-smoking state. And they were good, but don't get me wrong, they weren't impeccable. They were not like his past forgeries. So how did they sell, you're wondering? Well, here's the fascinating thing about history. This was during World War II. Germany was occupying the Netherlands, and this is where all of Vermeer's works and other valuable art from the Dutch masters, the old masters, were in protective storage. Everyone was terrified that they would be damaged in war or looted. So when I say everyone, I just mean the people who cared about the art. Everybody else cared that they were gonna die, because it's a world war going on. Anyway, so they put it into protective storage. That meant that original Vermeers could not, under any circumstances, be taken out of protective storage during the World War by art experts to compare to any other forgeries or pieces. So they just had to go off with what was on their brain. These forgeries just slid under the radar as originals. Han did not sell his originals or his forgeries. He had agents doing that for him. And even during the World War, they sold for a pretty penny. Now remember, Germany is occupying the Netherlands. This is where Han is now living. And one of his agents sells a painting called Christ with the Adulteress. What an apt name.
Christ with that.
Yeah.
What?
Which, by the way, was not one of Han's impeccable forgeries. Like, this one was not amazing. It was beautiful, but it wasn't a Vermeer in the sense, like, that's why it wasn't impeccable. And if it wasn't World War II, someone might have noticed that it's not a Vermeer, but they just sold it as a Vermeer. Somehow, it ends up in the hands of a Nazi banker / art dealer. And then he turns around and sells it to Nazi Ramen, who was one of the highest ranking Nazis during World War II. Like, you could consider him one of Hitler's right-hand man.
He sold it to him?
Yeah.
Okay.
So now this high-up Nazi, one of the highest Nazis, is holding this alleged Vermeer that's actually done by Han, and Han made a fat check from this, from selling it to a Nazi. This is important. He made a lot of money from it, okay? So one of Han's forgeries...
And he knows where this is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Erman went home, hung that shit up so proudly in his Berlin residence, just living the life. But not too long after, he starts getting a little scared. Oof. The Allied powers are coming. They're doing a lot, right? So all of him and his fellow Nazis who had been looting a lot of artwork, okay? So most of it was looted. This one he actually purchased because it was a Vermeer, but a lot of Erman's other artwork was just looted from rich people's houses and museums from countries that Germany would occupy. Anyway, they needed to keep it safe. They needed to keep it protected. So Christ with the Adulteress and other paintings go into this Austrian salt mine. But 2 years later, the Allied forces would pry open that and just discover a plethora of looted paintings that were owned by the Nazis. So they track down the origins of each piece, give it back to their rightful owners, and a lot of it they were trying to figure out, like, did somebody sell a painting? Because that's important too. It wasn't just about giving it to their rightful owners. It was about knowing if it was looted and stolen from the rightful owners versus sold to the Nazis. Because if you're selling to the Nazis, that's not a good look. First of all, it's not a good look, and now you have to be investigated because why are you on the Nazi side? Like, are you crazy? And so Christ with the Adulteress led back to, yeah, you guessed it, they traced it all the way back to Han van Meegeren. Now, this doesn't mean that this whole forgery gig is up. In fact, they locked him up. They threw him in prison, charged him with fraud and abetting the enemy.
What do you mean fraud?
Oh, yeah. So they were pissed at Han, not because he drew it and gave it to the Nazis, but because they believed that this was a precious artwork from one of the old masters, Vermeer. And Han somehow got his grubby little hands on a Vermeer and he sold it to the Nazis. He was a Nazi sympathizer, a plunderer of Dutch cultural property. And this was such a heinous, serious offense that Han was facing the death penalty.
Wow.
Yes. I mean, it's pretty bad. Like, you're profiting off war and you're profiting off the side that's going around literally massacring people.
Okay, so karma finally caught up.
Yeah.
Dang.
So now he's got these two options ahead of him. You either die a painter and an artist and a Nazi sympathizer, or you live as a fraud and a forger. Because you either die as like an artist that had a Vermeer and sold it to a Nazi, and now you're a Nazi sympathizer, go die. Or you come up and say, hey, so I'm kind of a forger, and your name as an artist would be, you know?
Yeah, but who cares? Like, you still made the money, right?
Yeah, so he chose to live, okay? He told the courts, the painting in your hands, that's not the accent. The painting in your hands is not, as you assume, a Vermeer, but a Van Meegeren. I painted the painting. Everybody gasped. Someone might have fainted. Courtroom affairs were really theatrical back then. They kind of still are now. I mean, just look at the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. But it was really theatrical back then. Like, so he says, I can prove myself. I will paint another piece that will pass as a Vermeer in the presence of a court-appointed witness or in front of a guard in a jail cell to show you that it was I that painted the piece right there. Another gasp. The Christ and the adulteress. So the court was like, I mean, I guess you could try, but if you fail, we're gonna you. Like, you're gonna die. And there's nothing you can do about it. So he goes to prison, and from July to December for like 6 months, he sat in prison. Painting his life away, putting his whole heart, his whole soul, his whole into this painting, because quite frankly his life depended on it. He had to prove to everyone he could create a Vermeer, and if he couldn't, he dies. I mean, the stakes couldn't be higher. So he's sweating all day, painting his very last forgery in prison called Jesus Amongst the Doctors. Once it was complete, a group of experts were brought in. It looked like a Vermeer. They even looked at Hans' painting that he gave to the Nazis, and they found the cracks that formed in his work was too random and not natural from aging. They also said that the black spots under the cracking were paint rather than the dirt and dust. And of course, I mean, listen, I don't know why they didn't just do that first, but they were like, okay, that was a forgery.
Yeah, exactly.
And they said that they couldn't dissolve the paint using strong alcohols and acids and bases. So I think that they couldn't do that because you almost mess up a painting with that type of testing.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Whereas like I think technology is maybe a little bit better today, where maybe you could test it a little bit better. I don't know. Forgeries are still rampant in the art world. But I think back then you really had to like mess up a painting, and the chance that it was a Vermeer, I don't think that they could live with it. So once they saw his painting and it was good enough to be considered a Vermeer, then they painted the Christ with the adulteress, or tested the Christ with the adulteress. Is my speculation. So it was clear to them that the painting that was given to the Nazis was fake, and Han was finally exposed and freed as nothing more than a forger. His serious charges were dropped, and he was only charged with forgery and fraud. He would spend just 1 year in prison, and after serving his sentence, he went back to Amsterdam to his ex-wife to live out the rest of his days. I mean, literally, we're talking days. He was released November 2nd, and he died a few days later, November 26th. He was rushed to the hospital and had a heart attack. He was 58 when he died.
Wow.
What's fascinating is that after he died, he got a death mask made for him, which death masks are supposed to be these like plaster casts taken of a dead person's face. It usually captures their last facial expression. It originated in Egypt, with the most recognizable being King Tut's. The Egyptians believed that a death mask should be buried with the individual in order for the soul to find the way back to the body in the afterlife. So there's a lot of famous death masks, and Han is actually one of them. And Han's estate was sold for about $500,000. Meanwhile, his wife still had all his money, and she claimed, I did not know he was doing that. I had no idea. So they couldn't take her assets. I mean, highly doubtful. I don't know if she helped him, but it's hard to believe that she had no idea about the fact that he was forging things. Like, that's weird. So she lived out the rest of her life in opulence. But the drama does not end there. Okay, it never ends there. There was an art expert who came out to say, oh yeah, Last Supper 2 is fake. It was also by Han, not Vermeer. Now, this rich guy had already bought the Last Supper 2, and he thought it was a Vermeer. So his little ego was hurt, and he was suing this expert for hurting his feelings. And he was like, no, this is a Vermeer. My art guy said it was a Vermeer, so take that back. Tell everybody that I have a Vermeer, not a forger. I have a Vermeer. So Paul The art expert refused. So they went back and forth, and eventually the judge ruled in favor of the art expert, and the rich man did not get the $10 million that he wanted in the lawsuit. To do with whatever rich men do with $10 million in Europe. I don't know. Buy a horse. Another trip to Monaco. I don't know. Okay? So Han is also suspected by some to be the artist behind the smiling girl, one of the most famous Vermeer forgeries, or copycats. The girl looks really similar to the girl with the pearl earring, but like make it Halloween. She's really creepy. I don't know how to say it nicely.
Is this a fake?
Yeah.
Confirmed?
She's all like, it's weird. She looks really creepy. Yeah, with peace and love. And it's officially attributed to a friend of Han's, but a lot of people believe that Han himself drew that one. So anyway, the main question really remains, was Han a Nazi sympathizer or not? Because allegedly, people said that Han sent his art book to Adolf Hitler himself, and it was alleged that it was signed to my beloved in grateful tribute from Han. He admitted that the signature on the book was him, but he was like, I don't know about the rest of the stuff, that's not me. But like, how would you explain the rest of the stuff? That doesn't make any sense. So the rest of the message looked like his handwriting. It looked like the same handwriting as the signature. Okay? Then you have the other side of people who believe that Han pulled one over on the Nazis. And that in and of itself is hilarious. I mean, think about it. He tricked them. He tricked them out of money and other valuable works. And they're thinking, sure, Han got the money, but at least the Nazi didn't get the money. You know what I mean? Like the Nazi got nothing. So at the end of the day, who really lost in this? Obviously, they're saying in the end, the only person that got hurt in this very specific situation, not World War II, was that Nazi that bought the Vermeer because he lost a ton of money. He actually traded like 100 actual valuable pieces for it as well. So he lost all of that and got a fake. So some people kind of praised him, really. They were like, he pulled one over on the Nazis, whether it was for greed or not, whatever. Fuck the Nazi, we don't care. We don't care. But then you have a third group that believes, well, it didn't seem like Han was ever going to expose his forgery, so technically the Nazi wouldn't have lost because that Vermeer would have sold like a Vermeer later on.
Yeah.
Which is probably appreciating in value. And they were just saying it didn't matter who Han was selling or not selling to because all Han wanted was money, and that's the problem. And now Han is trying to make himself look and feel better by saying, it was my plan all along to trick a Nazi.
You know what's crazy is if he didn't get caught,
yeah, it would just be a Vermeer.
There would be a bunch of people thinks they have a Vermeer, or a bunch of museums or collectors. And then God knows when they're going to realize it's a fake. But guess what? At that point, they would not tell people it's a fake. No.
And you know what's fascinating?
And guess what? I don't think this is the only one out there. So there must be a lot of fake arts that claim to, or even hanging in the museums.
Yeah, there's gotta be.
Who knows if Mona Lisa is the real Mona Lisa? Who knows?
Because, you know, providence, that fucking term, the ownership of a piece of art, which really means nothing. And also, on that note, take out the whole Nazi thing, take out the Nazis out of the story. If a bunch of rich people found out that their art was fake, I feel like I'm not really that, I don't feel bad for them. Like, this whole story, I'm like not even that mad at him for being a forger, except for the Nazi part. Like, okay, take that part out, like he sold it to a Nazi, all of that, super shady. I think you're too greedy. You literally want to profit no matter what. But then the rest of the part, I don't know if I'm even that mad.
Yeah.
I'm like, I mean, he was talented.
Yeah.
It takes an insane amount of talent to literally be passed off as a Vermeer, and you're not tricking normal, everyday people out of their next meal. You're tricking rich people, which I don't really have that much sympathy for. Yeah, or art people. Which again, I'm like, you gotta have a lot of money at that point, you know? It's either the museum's money or a rich person's money. I'm like, I don't know. It's a weird story. What are your thoughts on this one? So if you guys are interested in like even like the Chinese, the Zodiac ones being stolen, let me know. I could do like a whole episode on that one. Or, oh my God, did you know that the Mona Lisa was stolen? I just found that out. Listen, I knew about the Eiffel Tower, but I found out about the Mona Lisa being stolen maybe like a month ago. And I was like sitting there thinking, so you're telling me that the Mona Lisa and the cat hypothetical question that we've been doing on this channel for years now could very much be real one day. Nothing is impossible. Never say never. So let me know in the comments, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to check out Raycon, linked in the description, or go to buyraycon.com/bis, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye!